Hey everybody, this is Jason Alba, and I'm with my friend here, Casey Ayers. Say hi, Casey.
Hey Jason, how you doing?
Great. So this is a special recording or streaming that I wanted to do because we are at halfway through the month. And actually, do you realize what day it is today? Is this popped on
It
your
is.
radar?
It would be tax day typically.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
have seen nothing about this. This is like the calmest tax day of my entire life.
hmm
So I'm very pleased about that. I have not done anything with taxes. My accountant has, but we're sitting on it till whenever, June or July or whenever.
Yeah.
So anyways, this is special because we're specifically talking about the project management professional certification from the Project Management Institute, which Casey is an expert on. And I got to tell you why I'm afraid, why I'm scared of this conversation. Casey, I've been thinking about getting my PMP for easily 15 or 20 years. I mean, this has been on my radar for a long time.
Well,
And
and I'm
I'm
here to tell you
afraid,
why you should go ahead and make the leap at long
that's what
last.
I'm afraid of. I'm afraid that by the end of this conversation, I'm going to be like, okay, I'm going to do it. And I just might. I have a lot of stuff that I have on my plate right now, and I know that a lot of other people do. But what an amazing opportunity this is right now. So I'll tell one reason why it's amazing, and you can tell the other reason why it's amazing. On April 2nd, because they didn't want to do it on April Fool's Day, but on April 2nd, Pluralsight announced that they were opening their entire library of over 7,000 courses and all the other stuff they have for the entire month of April. And this is the first time they've ever done that. It's pretty epic. And as I watched my hours viewed every day, it is just, there's a lot of people taking advantage of this. And I'm very pleased about that. What a lot of people don't know, let me rephrase that. What a lot of people do know about Pluralsight is that it's the best place to get technical training and learn technical stuff. But what a lot of people don't know is that there are, my guess is over 300 professional development and soft skill courses. And one of the hidden gems in Pluralsight is the project management professional exam prep that you put together. This is something, how much would I pay? If I were going to go look for this exam prep anywhere else, I know I can do on-site classroom. I know I can do other courses. What's the value of something like this elsewhere?
So if you try to find another online source of some sort, a downloadable product, typically those might be several $100s on their own, which of course is equivalent to an annual Pluralsight subscription all by itself.
Yeah.
Plus you get so many other courses. But if you're looking in a classroom setting, traditionally training for the PMP has cost upwards of $2,000 per person in many cases. And so
Wow.
it's just a tremendous burden of an investment for either you as an individual, or if you're lucky, for your company to put forward that kind of money. And so I love the fact that you can not only learn what might be essential from a technical perspective for your job from Pluralsight, but also the fact that you essentially get courses like the ones that you and I make for free in that deal, where you might have the training for the thing you needed to know, but now we can help you to progress in your career and continue to evolve your career opportunities. It's just tremendous.
Yeah. So if I were paying for this out of pocket, and I own my own business, so it's not like I can go to my boss and say, hey, by the way, I want to do this certification, continuing education, throw this into the budget. I would actually take this out of my own pocket. And, I mean, that's taking money away from my personal income and my family income. And now, instead of thinking about hundreds of dollars for this series of courses, or like you said, a couple $1,000s on site, which is really just out of my budget. Like that's just not a possibility. For now, for the next 15 days, you get it for free. Casey and I, as authors, usually have access to 30-day passes. So you can do this 15 days for free and then come hit either of us up or any Pluralsight author and see if anybody has a 30-day pass. I mean, really, we're talking about a lot of access to this at no cost. But if you were to buy the Pluralsight, 1 year, and you can cancel before the year, but if you were to get the 1 year for $200 or $300, it's still an amazing cost savings because you get so much more. So Okay, so right now that's very timely is that Pluralsight, offers this and stuff. What is the big news in the project management world that also makes this conversation very timely?
Right. So that's why I was so excited to be able to hop on with you today is not only do we have the opportunity with Pluralsight to offer this training for free, and then even if you need more time, either through an extended trial or through even the monthly plans, very, very affordable way to continue the training at that point. Just as critically, you might be thinking, well, I'm preparing for this exam and I understand why I want to earn it, and we can get into that more later. How do I take the exam, right? In the time that we're in right now, we're all spending quite a bit of time at home. And so the idea of being able to go to a testing center is not necessarily possible. And so the Project Management Institute just yesterday on April 14th announced that the PMP exam can now be taken through an online live proctored system. So what that means is so long as you have a computer that has a webcam and a microphone, and you can get yourself into a room without any study materials or assistance or your phone, any of those sort of distracting devices, you can take this exam right from home. There are increments every 15 minutes that you can sign up to take it. And so this is really a tremendous chance, especially if you are at a pause in your career right now, to be able to quickly accrue the training necessary, add that on to the experience that you've gained over years working in project environments, and then be able to take this test from home and gain the benefit of that PMP certification in just a few weeks' time. It really has not ever been easier or less burdensome to be able to achieve this process.
So this is I saw your tweet yesterday and you were super excited about this.
Yeah.
This is new. Like I've never been able to take this test from home or on through a computer before. I'd had to go somewhere.
Absolutely. And typically getting to the testing center isn't that terribly inconvenient, but that's if you live in a city where there might be a center nearby, especially if you might be more rural, it might take you a couple hours to just drive back and forth to the testing center. And that's no good for kind of your test prep mojo for the day of, to have that much time to maybe be overthinking things. It's much better to be able to prepare, take a little bit of time to relax, and then immediately dive in, know your results right away, and be able to start having that benefit of that new certification.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. Okay, I want to be a PMP.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in IT for 20 years. I've worked on projects. I heard years ago that I had to come up with like 2,000 hours. I had to do stuff I had to have 2,000 hours of stuff and then I have to pass a test. Is that right? Like, is that how I become a PMP?
It's actually more hours than that. But the hours might be a little easier to catalog than you might be led to believe. So if you have a 4-year degree or its global equivalent, you need to have at least 4,500 hours of experience with project management in the last 8 years. If you have a high school diploma or its global equivalent, then you need 7,500 hours over that 8-year period. But these hours don't have to be where you were in the title of project manager running the entirety of the show. It also cannot be those areas where you simply were a participant on the project. But if you were managing any component of that project, such as perhaps being just in charge of procurement or resource usage or the calendar or the budget, things where you might have been in an assistant role but still conducting management, those hours count. And you can use those as part of your eligibility. So you need that work experience. And then you also have to have 35 hours of training in order to sit for the exam. And that's what our Pluralsight series offers, is actually about 40 hours of total training that makes sure that you understand the exam, know how to apply for it, the requirements, how to prepare for the test, and then also all of the material that will actually be on the test itself. By combining those two, you're able to sit for the exam. And it's because those requirements are so high compared to different certs where you might not have any prerequisites, that the PMP is really widely valued in a lot of industries, because it stands as shorthand for human resources and others that you know what you're doing, that you have had time in project environments. It would not be possible for you to have earned this unless you already have it. And so you'll find for a lot of project management roles that it's either outright a requirement or there's an expectation that you will be in a position to earn your PMP within the first 6 or 12 months.
Interesting. So it's kind of like you're making me think about, my MBA experience when I went into my program at a state school, and they, let's see, what was the prerequisites? I don't know. I was breathing, I could pay tuition, and I had finished my undergraduate. And there's other MBA programs where you have to have like 5 years of valid work experience. And I am guessing that those other MBA programs are a lot more valuable, because I remember sitting in the classroom in the MBA program, and questions would come up and kids would raise their hands with these answers. And I'm like, you have no idea what you're talking about. I mean, I'd been working in management for a while before I got into the MBA program, and I'm with all these people who really had the weirdest answers. So what you're saying is, having gone through really all of the work to become certified with quantifying and proving your hours that you have in, plus all the exam prep and passing the test, whoever has a PMP, that's really saying something.
Absolutely. I didn't actually know that you also had an MBA. I earned mine a few years before earning my PMP. And it was a great experience. I feel like I learned a lot in that program. But just objectively speaking, I have seen significantly more career benefit and notice from my PMP than I have from earning my MBA. And so I think that it really can be a tremendous way to advance your career, either in lieu of a graduate program that would be extremely expensive by comparison. And even in cases where you might not have a 4-year degree in place, being able to show that you have that experience is so essential because of the sort of prerequisites that typically are required to even be looked at by someone who might be considering you for a job. It really can open a lot of doors, and you really will gain a lot of valuable knowledge that you can start immediately applying as a project manager moving forward.
Give me an example of money, right? So, I mean, I don't go learn stuff because I am Socrates and I want to learn stuff. I learn stuff to become more marketable and increase my income. What can you tell me about PMPs or just project managers in general? Like if I'm a project manager and I don't have a PMP, give me an idea of what the value is of having the PMP.
Absolutely. Obviously being associated with Pluralsight, a lot of our viewers are related to the technology industry in some capacity, or they might take on some technical tasks. And so it's interesting to me that the PMP always ranks highly on surveys within the technology community as being a really highly valued certification, because it's not a technology certification. It really is so much broader in the way that it can be applied. And you could be earning a PMP right along someone who has a background in construction or in engineering, in these areas that might not typically be related or benefit from the same certifications. But because these frameworks are both broad and universal, but also directly applicable and can help you improve your craft as a manager, regardless of the type of project environment or objectives you might face, it really is super useful. And so IT surveys have found in recent years that certified project managers make on average about 10,000 US dollars more per year than those who don't have a certification. And it really does just come down to, do I have a PMP or not? And of course, in our environment today, things are extremely topsy-turvy and difficult to be able to read moving forward right now. But in a high unemployment, high risk environment, it's even more essential to be able to have that certification, have the thing that puts your application over the top, because it might be the difference not between a marginal salary being a little bit higher or lower, but between that opportunity existing and not. And so I really am passionate about our ability right now to help people in this really kind of troubled time figure out ways that they can skill up and improve their prospects moving forward.
Yeah, love it. And going back to what you were saying earlier, the what it takes to get a PMP compared to what you get out of it. I mean, I'd love to make $10,000 more per year for the rest of my career. I mean, that's just a generalization, but there's some real value there. So, okay, tell me, you talked about construction or the PMP. I mean, there's construction people that are getting their PMPs. This is not just for software development what other, I mean, give me some ideas of roles that I might fill or things that I might do as a project manager.
Sure. So even in circumstances where project manager might not be the traditional title that's used to describe it, it's worth kind of taking a step back and thinking about, well, what is a project exactly, right? And that can be defined as any type of work that's unique in nature that results in some sort of unique output. It might be a new product or a new service, a special report of some sort that you develop, an upgrade to an existing system. All of these are projects. And so these are areas where organizations are able to not just maintain or continue the daily work that they do, but actually generate new value. And so that's why you've seen such an emphasis in recent years on moving toward project management generally, and then toward agile principles, for example, more specifically, because organizations realize the way that they can grow, that they can evolve, find new efficiencies, or expand into new markets is definitionally through project work. And so you'll find this really spread across a wide variety of industries because that is such a universally applicable concept.
Okay, awesome. I tell people, you know, if you want to be in IT, or I call it IT, although technologists have IT as a very specific definition within the computery world. But if you want to be in something technology, but you don't want to be the technologist because you know you're not a SQL person or a backend or a designer or a programmer or anything like that, project management is an excellent way to be involved in the tech world, where I would say that the salaries are generally higher, but you don't have to be that technical talent, which is great. That I've worked with project managers in the tech space, and I think they really enjoy their jobs. Who shouldn't get a PMP? I mean, is there a type of person that should, you know, that you would dissuade from working towards this?
Sure. You know, first and most obviously, if you don't yet have the work experience necessary, if you aren't able to assemble that 4,500 hours of necessary time, that's okay. This is still something that you should plan on in the future. In the meantime, I might recommend that you look at the Project Plus certification. We also have a learning path for that on Pluralsight. I developed the courses for that. It is the exact same material as what you'll find in the PMP, just covered at more of a beginner conceptual level. And so it's a much shorter series. It's a great way, even if you think you're interested in this, but you're not sure, to kind of take a first step and dip a toe in the water and see if this is something that might be interesting to you. If you
how do I find that? Let me switch over this view here. So here's your course, Beginner's Guide to Project Management. Where am I going to find? Is it one?
That's actually the first course in the series.
This is the first course in the series. Okay.
It is, yeah. So as you'll see there in the description, it's the first course in the CompTIA Project Plus series. And so if you search Project Plus also on Pluralsight, you'll see the learning path to be able to select. It's a 5-course series. I think it's about 10 hours of total time, if I recall right. And so a really good starting point if you want to learn more. And in a lot of cases, I've also heard from people who have gotten benefit out of it because they work with a project manager. They're part of a project team and they want to understand better what the viewpoint or perspective of their supervisor might be. You know, partly because they might aspire to be in that position in the future, but partly just to understand how to be a good team member as well right now. And so it's good for that as well.
I love the idea of learning other people's roles and understanding what their language is and what makes them tick and what their training has been or should have been. So if you go to Pluralsight, you can search for Casey, although he has over 50 courses, so you have to sift through a lot. But Beginner's Guide to Project Management. And then once you're logged in, a little bit below where the video shows, there will be a section that says which learning paths this course is in. And so this will be in that CompTIA learning path. And I love the idea that we can go into the entry level for only 10 hours and wet our feet and figure out if it's something that we're really interested in doing or not. And if it is, jump over to the big one, which is Project Management Professional PMI PMP Exam Prep. And definitely more time investment. When I go through this, so I mean, the first thing that scared me here was I'm not sure if I'm logged out right now, but I think there's what, 38 hours, almost 40
Yeah,
hours.
roughly. Yes, but
So
remember, you have to have 35 to take the exam, and so the material is designed to ensure that we meet that requirement while wasting as little of your time as possible. And that's one thing that really inspired me to make the courses in the first place, is that I received my training obviously from another source before I earned my PMP, and I'm grateful for the job it did in preparing me because I passed my exam. But I was left with the thought of what I would have done differently and how I would have approached the subject matter in a way that hopefully would be more engaging, more applicable, things that you could apply not only to the exam itself, but also back to your work. And so we do dive in at a deep level to each of these different areas of knowledge for project management, whether it might be managing your budget or your schedule, managing communications or your stakeholder relationships. And so we do dive into those subjects, but we do it in a way that is as respectful of your time as we can be while meeting that 35-hour requirement still.
yeah, and I love that. I know you're a very smart critical thinker, so I'm sure that what you've come up with is awesome. Here's my big question though. Am I taking notes? Like, is this really heavy learning? Is it going to take me 38 hours to do, or is it going to be like 38 times 2 because I have to pause a lot and think? And are there exercises? I'm just trying to gauge how much investment of my time am I putting into this?
Sure. I think it depends on your past experience, but because the prerequisites are in place, most people would probably find themselves in the same position that you and I did. So we both came into this, or at least I did when I took the certification. You would now if you chose it, having that background of an MBA and having already thought from a business perspective about a lot of these sorts of challenges. And so really it's a matter of adapting some of that common knowledge we already had toward these sorts of temporary endeavors and new ways to create value. And so I found the PMP study process to be very similar to a lot of the principles of both my undergraduate and then graduate business studies. And therefore, it was pretty easy to continue down that path. Now, if you're coming from a more technical background and you haven't had as much experience on the business side, some of these concepts might be more new to you. And so you may want to go ahead and be able to revisit them. But that's another thing that I love about our platform at Pluralsight is that you can always go back. You can slow things down. You can pause them instead of sitting in a classroom environment where we're trying to whip through material very quickly and you might feel left behind, but you don't want to hold the class up. You might not have an opportunity to ask your question. I encourage people to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I have conversations regularly with those who are working through the course material. I would say for the average learner, you won't need to view most of the course more than once. And there are just a few areas, such as when it comes to schedule and budget performance, where there are some formulas that you need to learn and some word problems that we go through, and those will show up on the exam. But for the most part, these are broader principles that you should be able to understand just by watching through the material.
Now, remind me, when I go take the exam, do I get notes? Do I get to take my notes in?
You do not get to take notes in for the exam, no. And so you will want to be comfortable with the material when you're getting into that testing environment. But it's, again, because most of the questions are more principle based and not necessarily related to a calculation, it's not quite as foreboding as it might sound.
Do you know what the pass rate is?
I don't know that PMI publishes that. It is a healthy pass rate. One of the reasons they don't publish a pass rate each year is because of how the test is constructed. They amass the questions for the exam from a large pool of questions, but the difficulty of those questions obviously might vary from question to question. And so the exact passing percentage necessary for each exam will depend on how difficult or easy of an exam you might have gotten based on the past performance of others. It's not an adaptive test the way that the GMAT is for graduate school, for example, where the material changes in stream. Rather, all the questions are set, but the exact passing threshold will change to accommodate how difficult those questions are.
Okay. What am I looking at money-wise? I know this could change over time, but like aside from the exam prep, which is awesome on Pluralsight, what am I looking at to pay for like my whole certification?
No, it's a great
Or the
question.
exam, I guess.
So there are two tracks that you can take for this. One, you can join PMI and become a member, which is roughly $130 a year. There are local chapters that you can join for a nominal sum, maybe another $10 to $20, depending on the chapter. And that can be a great networking opportunity, especially as we start to have more in-person events again. But it costs about $130 to join. That gets you very conveniently a $130 discount on the exam itself. So rather than paying $555, I think it is, you pay more like $430 for the exam. You also receive a free copy of the project management body of knowledge as part of being a member, which is the text that is kind of the primary basis for the PMP exam. And in addition to either my courses or any other training that you would receive, my primary recommendation is to read the PMBOK guide as well. And between that training and that research, you'll be in a really good position to be able to pass the exam. But yeah, you're looking at about $430 plus the membership fee in order to sit for the exam. So not a small commitment, but that's what makes it even more important that the training right now you can get without there being the hundreds or even thousands of dollars that often is related to that. It really makes it much more achievable for a lot of people right now.
Did I see there were over a million people that have their PMP?
Yeah, we're just about to clear 1 million total PMPs globally at this point. It's been stunning growth. I think when I earned mine maybe 6 years ago now, there were maybe 400,000. And so you really get an idea of how strongly this has been adopted outside of your kind of construction or engineering backgrounds and much more in these high compensation, high growth technical fields where there's an understanding that we need project managers that have not just the technical, but also the managerial knowledge necessary to lead our teams.
Yeah, that's awesome. What's amazing to me is there's that many people who have passed through the thresholds of all the hours required, the thousands and thousands of hours required, plus the exam prep, which, I mean, who wants to study for 35 hours, right, for an exam,
right,
and passing the exam and paying a few $100s, which sounds a little bit nominal, but you put all of those things together and there's a lot of barriers to get this, right? This isn't just
Absolutely.
Go to a boot camp and then walk out and you're good,
Right. Well, and so you can see where the value obviously lies in earning it, because otherwise there wouldn't be so many people who have chosen to kind of jump through all of those hoops along the way. And so it's a lot of people, but compared to the kind of overall global workforce, it's still a very select few that can claim to have that at this point.
Yeah, awesome. What if I fail?
No, it's a good question. We actually covered this in the last course in the Pluralsight series. You can retake the exam multiple times at a much discounted rate versus what it is up front. I know, especially for people who get anxious about standardized tests, it's important to know.
Test anxiety.
Right. What is my worst case scenario? And people absolutely go in and just barely miss that threshold and then clear it easily on the second time once they get a better feel for what the structure of the exam will be. But I think it's within most people's reach if they utilize the practice tests, which we do have free practice tests as part of Pluralsight. In addition to the standard learning assessments that go with each course, there is access to practice exams with the subscription right now. So between that, the PMBOK guide, the courses, I think you'll be in a good position to hopefully pass on a first exam.
Wait, you just blew me away. There are, I get practice tests that I get to do through Pluralsight before I go do the real test.
That's correct. And so you can simulate the environment. Awesome. You can get a good idea for the type of questions that you're going to see through that mechanism. It's just another one of those things that if you don't know what's on the platform, here's just another bunch of value that's hiding out there right behind that course you might have watched for a technical purpose.
That is really cool. That's superb. Let's switch gears a tiny bit. Let's say I passed the test, right? So I passed it and I don't know, PMI sends me a cake or something. I don't know how they celebrate with me, but how do I market myself now? And we're switching into kind of personal branding, but what would you recommend that I do or maybe not do to market my help other people understand that this really is something valuable?
So the first thing you can do once you receive either, if you go to a testing center, they print it out and show you the results, or if you take it from home, you'll see it on the screen. Race over to LinkedIn and go ahead and add it to your profile right away. As soon as you pass the exam, you are officially a PMP at that moment. You don't have to wait for the certificate to arrive. They'll send you a nice certificate and pin a few weeks or maybe a month after the fact. But you can immediately call yourself a PMP. You have your special PMP number that they can use to verify that you've passed the exam with PMI. And that allows you to also do things like search for jobs using PMP as a keyword. If you go to Indeed or other sites and plug that in, you're going to find a lot of positions that do specifically require, or at minimum, strongly prefer candidates that have a PMP in place. And so if you are looking for a position right now, certainly that makes it that much easier because you're going to clear that major hurdle. If this is something that is part of your overall career progression, it's certainly worth sharing with your current employer and team as well, so that they can celebrate in your success and understand what your aspirations might be to grow your career with them as well.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, I'm feeling a little better. I'm still nervous, right? Because I'm the kind of person who I'm going to decide I'm going to do this and I'm going to jump in and I'm going to do it. And I know it's going to take some time and stuff. What am I not asking? What else should I know before we end this stream? What should I know before or before I don't know, take a look or kick the tires or just decide to jump in?
So I would strongly recommend you watch the Intro to PMP and Project Management course, which is the first in the series, because we go over all of the requirements and what you need to know about the test and how to apply at a very good level of detail. It only takes about an hour and a half, and you'll be able to make that assessment of should I continue or not based on
is it this one here on the screen?
Yeah, it's that one. So yeah, Introduction to Project Management and the PMP exam. And I lied. It's 2 hours and 20 minutes, it looks like, if I'm reading the screen cap here, right? But it's still, just a fraction of that overall time. So don't feel like you have to watch all 38 hours before you can make a decision. We go through a lot of the details here. One thing that I point out in this course that I think is worth thinking about before really diving in is making sure that you have that work experience in place in order to meet that requirement, and preferably that you have it with just a few larger projects where you've earned these hours, because it's important in case your application is one of the very few that's selected for a random audit, that you're able to provide either a colleague, a supervisor, a customer, or someone like that who can verify what your role on that project was. And so the fewer projects that you have to be able to collect that information for, the easier it will be for you to fill out that application and move forward with your process. So that's definitely one thing that I would keep in mind. But otherwise, we really cover all the basics in this first course, which is why I think it's one of the more popular soft skills courses on the Pluralsight platform, is because it does a good job of helping answer that question of, is this for me? Should I dive in? Should I go forward?
Yeah, awesome. This is great, Casey. Thank you so much. I learned a lot from you about what's on Pluralsight available to me. Also, just the whole PMP in general. Like I said, it's been on my radar for a long time. We're going to stop this and I'm going to have some thinking to do. I'm not going to commit to anything, but for anybody that's watching this, I know that the PMP can be great for your career. I have an MBA, but I don't put MBA hardly anywhere on my branding stuff on LinkedIn or whatever, because nobody cares. I mean, honestly, in the roles that I've had, especially as an entrepreneur, nobody cares that I have an MBA. They just want to know that my stuff works. I think PMP really is something that's very different, thinking about all those thresholds that we just talked about. So you have 2 weeks left of the free April on Pluralsight. You can go to Casey's Twitter page or my page or my blog or whatever, or just go to Pluralsight and try and find right here. It says start a free 10-day trial. Don't click on that one. You want to do the free April one. So look for free April and do that one. So you get free for the rest of April. If you're watching this after April of 2020, you can hit either of us up or other Pluralsight authors that you know. We might be able to get you a 30-day pass, which gives you an amazing amount of information. But I'll be honest with you, this I think is one of the most valuable things that Pluralsight has to offer. And that's saying a lot because there are some amazing courses on Pluralsight. So with that, Casey, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. And if you are watching live or watching shortly after we're recording this, I would challenge you, get started now, because if you make a goal of trying to get through one of these courses per day, which is really achievable, you could be done with your training by the end of April. Submit your application and potentially take the exam as early as the first week in May. This does not have to be a 6-month commitment to get it out of the way if it's something that you can commit to fully, and really harness your ability to focus and that extra energy right now. And then aside from my courses, I would urge you to definitely check out Jason's now more than ever as well. It's important to know things like how to buff up your resume, and how to be an effective mentor to others in this situation, or to be a good mentee if you're working with someone else with your career development. I know a lot of people are going to come out of the next few months with different career trajectories than where they entered it. And so taking this time now to kind of plan for your future and gain those skills you're going to need, regardless of what your technical job role might be, is so important to being able to make sure that you come out of this in a very positive fashion.
Thank you. Awesome. All right. We'll talk to you next time. Bye, Casey.
Thanks, Jason.